All right, let's get right into it. Picture this. It's September 3rd, 1860. We're at a place called Ironwood Plantation in Tennessee. The night kicks off with a party. A big celebration for a record cotton harvest. But before the sun even thinks about coming up, that party turns into an absolute holocaust.
And here's the shocking result of that night. 15 men, the plantation's entire crew of overseers. They walked into a barn to drink and celebrate, and not a single one of them ever walked out again. By morning, there was nothing left but ash.
Now get this. People on the neighboring plantations, they said they could hear the screams. And they heard them for a horrifyingly specific amount of time, 2 hours and 47 minutes. And as you're about to find out, that number was no accident. Not at all.
Officially, the plantation master tried to pass it off as a tragic accident. But come on, the evidence just didn't add up. This wasn't bad luck. This was a meticulously planned operation. So the real question, the one we're going to unpack right now, is how did this happen? And maybe more importantly, why? See, to understand the fire, we have to go back 6 months. Because the thing that lit the fuse for this whole tragedy wasn't some grand plot for rebellion. It was the simple, and as it turns out, very dangerous curiosity of a 16-year-old boy named Abel Hammond. You have to understand, in the 1860s in Tennessee, reading was literally a crime if you were enslaved. The law saw a literate slave not as an enlightened person, but as a weapon, a threat that could bring the whole system of bondage crashing down. And Abel, after finding a Bible, secretly taught himself to read, breaking a law he probably didn't even know was real. Well, it was only a matter of time. He was eventually found out. An overseer named Silas Burke caught Abel up in a stable loft, tucked away in the hay, just trying to make out the words in that Bible. And that one moment of discovery, it sealed his fate. The punishment wasn't just cruel, it was symbolic. The plantation master, a man named Cornelius Whitfield, didn't just order a whipping. No, he ordered a public spectacle. He ordered a number of lashes tied directly to the history and the power of his plantation. So they did it. The entire force of 15 overseers took turns, delivering lash after lash until the boy's back was just destroyed. And to make it even more monstrous, every other slave on the plantation was forced to stand there and watch the whole thing. Abel Hammond didn't survive. He died right there in the workyard, in the arms of his father. And in that exact moment, as he held the lifeless body of his only child, something inside his father didn't just break, it transformed. It became something cold, hard, and deadly. And this brings us to the man at the very center of our story, Abel's father, Rufus Hammond. He was the plantation's 41-year-old master blacksmith. His grief didn't come out as tears or despair. Nope, it quietly forged itself into a calculated, all-consuming purpose. Now, Rufus was an imposing man, a master of his craft, incredibly strong and sharp as a tack. In fact, he was so valuable to the plantation that even the overseers were a little afraid of him. But the most important thing to know about him? His own father, an Ashanti blacksmith, had taught him a powerful lesson. Fire was the ultimate equalizer, and Rufus never forgot that. This really captures the two completely different worlds existing on that plantation. You had Master Whitfield, who truly seemed to believe that slavery was God's will. And then you had Rufus, who saw the grim reality every single day. The beatings, the families torn apart, the utter degradation. He watched, and he remembered every last thing. So as he held his son, Rufus looked up, and he saw the 15 overseers laughing about what they'd done. He didn't say a word. He just watched them, burning every single detail of every single face into his memory. Right then and there, he sentenced all of them to die. That fire, 6 months later, it was no crime of passion. It wasn't a sudden violent outburst. It was the result of a brilliant, patient, and perfectly engineered plan. Rufus Hammond, the blacksmith, began to forge his revenge. Think about the incredible patience this took. For 6 straight months, Rufus basically became a ghost. He watched their routines. He slowly, secretly siphoned off things like coal oil and turpentine. He even designed and tested his own slow-burning fuse until he got it perfect, a 23-minute delay. Just enough time to walk from the barn to his own quarters and have an alibi.
His strategy was just a masterclass in planning. He knew their habits inside and out. He collected his weapons in plain sight, a little bit from here, a little bit from there. He subtly weakened the doors and hinges of their bunkhouse, their only escape. And finally, he turned that cotton barn into a bomb and laid the groundwork for a ring of fire to make absolutely sure no one got out. And all of this careful, patient work built up to the night of the fire. The overseers gathered for their party, totally clueless. They were drunk, celebrating, and walking right into a perfect trap. At exactly 9:46 p.m., right on schedule, the barn went up like a torch. The fire panicked them, and they ran right into their bunkhouse, the very building Rufus had booby-trapped. When they tried to get out, the doors were jammed, the windows were too small, they were sealed inside a furnace. The devastation was just total. The plantation's record-breaking cotton harvest, worth over $70,000 back then, poof, gone. The buildings were nothing but ash, and its entire management team, all 15 overseers, had been wiped out in a single night. And he got away with it, completely. Rufus was with 40 other slaves singing spirituals when the fire started. Every single piece of evidence was burned to a crisp. Master Whitfield knew it was murder, he knew it, but he had no proof. And the entire enslaved community formed a wall of silence. The stress of it all, they say, is what killed Whitfield just 3 months later.
Rufus Hammond made it through the Civil War. He lived to see freedom. He died in 1878, but not before he passed this story down to his grandchildren, a generation that, because of the sacrifices of so many, could finally read and write without fear.
So this brings us to the big question, right? How do we remember and act like this? Was it vengeance or was it justice? I mean, by the letter of the law in 1860, Rufus Hammond was a mass murderer, period. But if you look at it through the eyes of people who had zero legal protection, who watched their own children be tortured to death, well, his actions start to look a whole lot different. This wasn't the biggest rebellion, not by a long shot, but it might have been one of the most effective. Its sheer precision sent a shock wave of fear through the South. It was proof that one determined, brilliant person could bring a powerful system to its knees, using the very tool his father taught him about, fire, the great equalizer. And that leaves us with a really tough question, one that echoes from 1860 all the way to today. Rufus Hammond lived in a world where the law wasn't his protector, it was his oppressor. And it makes you wonder, in a system that offers absolutely no path to justice, what path is left?